Okay, next slide, let's see what's there. Coming back to the opposites. So the law of opposites, I think, is very, very important in understanding that the pubic symphysis is not just the opposite of this important area, but that it has been declared kind of a no man's land, right? There's a lot, how many people work, how many body workers work the groin, you know? How many times have you worked someone's groin? And think of the structural importance. It's obvious, of course, all the genitals, you know, the lymphatics and the neurology and everything, you know. So there's good reasons to be really careful, but it's incredibly relieving to come in to the fascia here and just open the system up. You know, it's incredibly relieving and liberating, especially for people with femoral acetabular syndrome and low back issues. So the point I'm trying to make is that we have an epidemic. It's shaping people's bodies. It's shaping them in specific ways. Not everyone responds the same. Not everyone is affected as everyone else. But it's a very, very powerful influence. And this is the anatomy that organizes it, and this is the anatomy where we need to intervene. So recapturing the feet and the big toe, recapturing the crotch, and then we come up to I always focus on the body, kind of like Mars. I look at the feet or the ankles, I look at the pelvis and the low back, and then I look up here, this complex. That's how I organize the body. And go to the next one. Is there no more? So for the anatomy of the core, the deep core up here, the issue becomes we're in head forward position, but really what's happening is that our extremities are weighing down that structure, is what's happening, right? Why would the extremities weigh down that structure? Why do you think? What would be the reason that we're kind of, so many people are in this position? What? They have a lax core, right. Diaphragmatic strength. But habitually, people are constantly put in a position, right? How many times have you raised your hands overhead? Well, fuck you. I understand. But think about the world out there. How many times do people raise their hands overhead? Not at all. So, you know what I'm saying? So.
Thinking, what if the keyboard was like above you?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Like,
Why not? Why not? So the problem with the deep core here is the extremities, okay? Just like the problem with the deep core here is these extremities, right? The deep core up here, it's this one, right? We're kind of opposite. And so go ahead to the next one. I mean, this is what we think of as the shoulder. But what is the shoulder? Like, how many people believe in the shoulder? I believe in the shoulder. Say it. Come on, say it. You believe in it, fuckers. You believe in it. It doesn't exist. The shoulder doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. What is the shoulder? The shoulder is that margin on the side of the road, right? It's that margin on the side of the body, right? You know, this is a lap, and when I stand up, it disappears. When I raise my hands, my shoulder disappears. You're going to say, no, it's a real thing. Let's look at the definition. The shoulder is Oxford Dictionary. Upper joint, and the part of the body between this and the neck. Okay? Free Dictionary, the joint connecting the arm with the torso, all right? This is not the joint that connects the arm with the torso. This is, yeah, it's the scapula. Or the part of the body between the neck and so this is conflated with the scapula. How about medical authorities? Every shoulder expert, every single one. What are they working on? What are they working on? You know, what are they working on? The glenohumeral joint, right? So the medical definition is the glenohumeral joint, formed by the junction of the humerus and the scapula, but you notice it's not the scapula, right? So, okay, next slide. There's a picture of it. You know this kind of stuff. You know, I talk to people. It's like, if you want to throw something, are you going to throw it from here? Or are you going to throw it from here, right? If I'm going to play hockey, if I'm going to pick up a hockey stick, I'm going to pick it up from the handle, right? Or maybe the blade or something. That's your point of leverage. So anyone who thinks this is their shoulder is moving their arm like this, right? So this is not a point of organization. This just happens to be a very visible outcropping on the body. You know, it's not very sensory either. Next slide. Where does your arm begin? We think of the arm as beginning here, but in fact, it begins here. And the interesting thing is that this joint, the glenohumeral joint, you can go to the next one. It's the same thing, next one. More, our common beliefs. Just everything we believe, the arm is stuck on the neck somehow. We just believe it's stuck somehow on the side of the body. And so this is a major body image issue. This is the pollution of our body map. And that is the reason why this happens. Because we don't know that the arm is anchored, you know, halfway. You look at your pec. Look how far your pec comes down. Your scapula is identical to the pec on the back. It's the same halfway down the back, right there.
That's so funny when you said this, it's the side of the road, and then Edith's posture. It's very visually and very like, oh, you think of the shoulder, like the garbage part of the road, and then you're bringing the garbage part of the road
forward,
right? And you're losing the good tread.
Yeah.
It's a very nice visual.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, what I tell people is wear your arms on your back. So I'd like you guys, whether sitting or standing, whether in contact or not, I'd like you to take your fingertip and I'd like you to visualize your fingertip like, well, let's go ahead and explore what's it like to connect to this joint. All right? That feels very normal to me. That's how I spent my whole life, right? And that's what I always do. But this joint here, the bony surface is the size and depth of an almond. How many animals on the planet Earth have a joint that does that? How many? Primates. Maybe an insect. Nothing, right? No argument, right? This is an incredibly unstable joint. So if we're living from this joint, we're living in pain and instability. Why do surgeons love that? It's obvious. Why does no shoulder specialist talk about the scapula? And if they do, well, we don't really understand the relationship of the scapula to shoulder pain. And I'm like, are you kidding? Are you kidding? You know? So now I want you to take your finger and just touch the floor, touch your face, raise it overhead, and I want you to come really deeply, and this is what I do all the time, and just be present in your back, in the scapula. And if you have shoulder pain, I'm not guaranteeing it, but for most common sorts of shoulder pain, you feel it here. You come in here to fix it, you're going to make it worse. You come back there to that scapula, the body will self-organize. Trust me, it will self-organize. Yeah. So if I shake hands with you, let's shake hands from our shoulder. Here we are. How are you? Hi. You know, it's all surface, right? But if we shake hands from our back, it's powerful. Right. And I'm reaching through your body. I'm reaching through my body. Yeah. Very deep, right? So the anatomy of the sitting disease epidemic is these three missing bones, these three absent sources of profound and important power. So the big toe, the crotch, and I like to say crotch or groin. I think it's meaningful, but pubic symphysis. If I say pubic symphysis, you think of this bone here, and you don't really think of all the muscles down in there. And that is what's going to heal you, right there. And then the scapula. What else is on the slides? So the easiest cure for the slouch is that. And if you think about the range of motion, it's not 360 degrees global. It's probably 270 or something, you know? But where do we have our hands all the time? This 90-degree quadrant. So it's pretty much a no-brainer. If you want to fix it and balance it, what's the opposite, right? What's the opposite? That. So, you know, when I told my sister this, she said, "No, I'll never do that. That's what the police make you do." But it's not my sister. No, everybody I tell, they're like, "Oh, okay, sure. I'm not raising my hands." Because, you know, that's what you do in school. You get called on and shit. You go to Japan. Yeah, you go to Japan and people are walking around like this. They don't think about it. They don't need a lecture. You know, lifts up the chest. It feels good. So go ahead and try that. Bring your hands overhead and feel the rib cage lift off the lung. Feel that vigor, right? And I know you guys are there already, but still, if you have shoulder issues, this is your go-to first thing. Come back into the scapula. Power. The biopsychosocial, the social is the slouch. The social is repression. The social is conformity, right? We conform to the social code like this. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Johnny, you get out of your seat again. You're going to the principal's office. Shut up. Do your math worksheet. How many times have I said that? You know, right? This kind of issue here, levator scapula, you know, it's just how many clients do I have? It's all the same pathology. It's all the same. You know, okay, I really respect the sophistication that you guys have shown, Samantha and Catherine, when we were talking in the car, and all of this training with all the sophistication. But for me, it's utterly simple. And I want to, you know, so when I work on my clients, that's what I'm doing.
Being able to break it down on the level of, like, speaking about the movements that you should participate in has been one of the most substantial things in helping people for me is that, you know, we talk about how, you know, in kind of parallel to what you were talking about, that we sit with our arms out in front, but when we sit with our arms out in front, we're not necessarily bracing with our scapula. We're not orienting the scapula in such a way where it's purposefully forward. We brace on our arms, and our scapula tend to just either sit back or ride up, rather than, you know, powerfully connecting to your serratus anterior and then having your lats brace those arms and actually.
That's hot. That's good. I got power now. Yeah. This, bench press. You know, it's very hard. How many people get it in the gym? How many people get it in the gym? How many, huh? Like, what percentage don't get it in the gym, right? Everything is like this. You know?
That's like when you talk about movements and, you know, we tend to think of gym goers, but again, like, the most are not gym goers.
Yeah.
Right? So instead of movements, if you could talk about postures and positions, like, all I want you to do is this.
Yeah.
Right? There's no sets, there's no reps, just get into this position and get it that least resistance.
Totally.
Like, what little dose could I give them that they'll actually do that can build up?
And then the same for low back pain. You know, do all these things. They're all great. I love it. I want to work with the best practitioners I possibly can who have the highest level of training. But for my mom and the rest of the fucking world, right? It's, you know, think about your tripod, right? When you walk, connect your tripod with your crotch. You know, maybe stick your crotch out a little bit. Play with that. You know, that extension is the opposite of anterior pelvic tilt, right? How easy is it going to be for me to you know, to do a lunge in like this unstable, right? But if I have that nice stability through here, right, I've got some power to generate. That's pretty much my whole fucking talk. Pardon my language.
Great. Squeeze stuff between your legs. Yeah.
Yeah, squeeze your legs together. If you've got low back issues and posterior hip issues, femoral acetabular issues, it's probably because you've been sitting too much. When we sit, the body defaults into the same posture, right? What?
Metabolic ease.
Yeah. Well, so, but most of us default into the same posture. Now, some people got this going on, and then maybe some people are more, valgus than others. But even for valgus, it's like we want to strengthen this line, right? That's what we want to do. So, missing bone, missing bone, missing bone, and.
It's so interesting you talk about this because the whole entire fitness rule is anti-valgus.
Mm-hmm.
It's like vehemently anti-valgus.
In the 70s, what happened is we became aware of that and the collapse of the arches in the 70s. Then what happened is, what?
We tether, like, this is the cause, this is the effect. We merely mash them together.
We put a support under the weak part. And we just came up the line until now we have an epidemic. All right. Other factors, TVs, remote controls, electronics, institutionalization, urbanization, sitting. Okay. But you can trace that. I haven't seen any kind of historical studies done, but it's a pretty good consensus there on that. And,
I guess that's the kind of what I mean is like anti-valgus is they're assuming that's going to collapse, right? Or that's going to collapse that. Separating them and be like they can exist on their own, they can have their own purpose. Again, this is the dogma versus the critical thinking. So it's kind of neat to be like, maybe not.
Yeah.
Maybe they're not one and the same.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, what I love is just the really, really simple solution. Do you guys think that's pretty digestible, huh? That's pretty good for public consumption, right? I mean, we can get into the sophisticated, fun details, but that's the kind of thing where I feel like it's a revolution in anatomy, right? It's a total revolution in every field, but in anatomy. And this is the application of that science to the innate structure of the body. The body is built to do this, right? What's our position in the womb, right? So it's built. This is age, weakness, exhaustion. That's what we default to, right? And that's what we've defaulted to as a society.
So it's into the care mold too, right? Like that give, no receive, right? Eventual exhaustion. This is the inevitable, right?
Yeah.
Without that.
Yeah, the collapse. So then what is the care part? The care part is, well, now we know what's the simple anatomical kind of default. What are the opposites that we can focus on and bring attention and an intention to? Attention has the word tension in it. So we're going to bring structure back. And the care part is seeing. Sit there in the car outside of Denny's or whatever restaurant you go to and watch the guy and his wife, the middle-aged guy and his wife, maybe 50s, 60s, get out of their car and step down the curb. Think about their feet. Look at people walking on the road. Think about their feet. No, it breaks your heart.
I made like a story about this on Instagram. Like I was in TSA and like watching people take off their shoes and I'm just like, it's like, I spent so much
It's an
time
assault on the
watching
core.
arch
It's an
collapse.
assault on our humanity. It's an assault on our power.
But even thinking about like the care portion, right? Again, we can only care so much for others, but it's for that person to believe and care enough that they will, in those long periods of rest, find moments of rightening attention, to pay attention when they're walking. Where's that? Like that is the self-care. It's not in the gym of an hour,
No.
right? It's in the 23 others that you're hanging out. That do you have that moment to like look
Neat.
inward?
Neat.
Yeah.
The non.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And not because you pay a bunch of money to a specialist or some kind
No.
of doctor.
Right.
that's
I
the-
can fix me. The idea
That's my position on the money thing. Is like I think I can make money with this. People pay me, But then I want to make something that you put it out there and it's going to change the world by itself. If you know this, What do people know? You ask people about their feet, and you try to talk about this, and what do they say? Oh, well, but arches. They need arches. Don't they need arches? Yes, of course they need arches. Goodbye. And nobody will listen. I'm going to put my boy in arches.
Arches are flat.
My boy's feet hurt. I'm going to put him in arches.
Orthotics.
Yeah, they believe it. That's why I say, do you believe in the shoulder? It doesn't fucking exist. Here's an analogy for the shoulder. Think of a selfie stick, right? You know, there's this gimbal in between that self-stabilizes the camera, right? It's self-stabilizing, right? Self-organizing. But what if we all held the gimbal stick, the selfie stick, from the gimbal casing? After a while, that gimbal casing would deteriorate and it would no longer function properly. Why would you hold it from the gimbal and not the handle? You know, why would you hold the fishing rod from the reel and not the handle? Why would you focus all of that volumes of PhD, MD research on this, and then they say, wow, that's interesting to think about the scapula. Some guy, one of the researchers said, well, what about the scapula, like 10 years ago? And they're like, well, we don't know.
End of conversation.
They still don't know.
So
So,
I would argue that there are some professionals who are enhancing and changing their ideas about, you know, the way things
yeah.
go. And like,
it's a revolution. We're part of a revolution. Yeah. But you know what? I think I'm the only person saying this right now. I think I'm the only person saying the shoulder doesn't exist. That it's wrong. That it doesn't exist as a viable. It simply creates, you pollute your motor control, right? Your motor control center is posterior, right? It gets the back. It gets the posterior power chain. This part of us is like, it sees this, it sees the pec, the neck, and it's doing stuff. Our cognitive misunderstanding of our body, a superficial understanding of our body, has polluted the body map of the motor control center that we built in our childhood. So it's like, it needs to be battled against, you know. We need to not think about the shoulder. All right, that's my talk. Thank you so much for listening.
Buddy, yeah.
Yeah. I appreciate you going through all of my agitated passion there like that.